Well, it's that time again. Let's take a look at the major races going to be run around the country this weekend. And John, let's go out to California first with the San Diego, a prep, of course, for the Pacific Classic. And they've got a nice race lining up there. Country Grammar is coming back. He's the 125-pound high weight. It'll be his first race since winning the Dubai World Cup. Mandaloun, last year's Kentucky Derby winner via disqualification. He's going in there for Brad Cox. There goes Harvard, the winner of the Hollywood Gold Cup, will be in that race. And Express Train, the winner of the Diego Handicap, he's in there too. All these horses, if they run well, they'll be back for the Pacific Classic where they're going to run into Flightline. But I'm really interested to see what Country Grammar can do. I mean, he's kind of been the forgotten horse a little bit because he hasn't been seen on U.S. soil this year. But then again, he ran two great races, second in the Saudi Cup, wins the Dubai World Cup. Can he beat Flightline? I don't think so, because I don't think anybody can beat Flightline. But nonetheless, if he comes out of this race with a big effort, he's going to be the talk leading up to the Pacific Classic so far as who can beat Flightline.
And Bill, I wonder with Country Grammar, you say he's the forgotten horse. I had forgotten that he's made almost $11 million in purse earnings. I mean, which is astonishing to me. Granted, $10 million of it was, from basically from overseas, but for all intents and purposes, he has been the forgotten older handicap horse. He ran two great races overseas. Both of them were much, much further than the mile and 16th San Diego Handicap. And I think that ultimately might be his downfall, is the fact that this race is so much shorter than what he's used to running in. There's a couple other horses that may run in there. You mentioned Express Train, who won it last year. Mandaloun, who's just one of the most interesting hard luck colts that I've seen in a while. And we can talk to Brad Cox about that in today's show. Royal Ship, who's a Mandela horse. Senior Buscador, remember him? Mm-hmm. Who was on the Derby campaign at one point. He looks like that he's a possible horse in the race. And you mentioned There Goes Harvard, and I actually had to do a little homework on There Goes Harvard because he's only run, or he hasn't run on the East Coast at all. But he was only off the board, Bill, once, and that's when he lost his rider. Every other race that he's run in, he's finished first, second, or third in his career. And yet it's all been in, maiden races, allowance races, kind of undercard stake races. And then he went ahead and won the Gold Cup, earlier in the year. And now all of a sudden, There Goes Harvard is being talked about as one of the top horses out in California, at least. So it's going to be an interesting field based on who possibly could run in there. And then, by the way, Tripoli may run also, and all he's done is made $900,000 in purse earnings. So it's going to be an interesting field, to say the least. I think that the only thing that's going to defeat Country Grammar is the distance. But that being said, he's a horse to watch, and certainly going to be entertaining racing out in California for the San Diego Handicap.
Right. So let's turn our attention to Saratoga, another big weekend, of course. And the highlight of the Saratoga weekend is going to be the Jim Dandy. And you've got right now at least four big name horses lining up for it. Epicenter, who, even though he didn't win one of the Triple Crown races, might have been the best horse in the Triple Crown series early on, with second place finishes in the Derby and the Preakness. Zandon, Bluegrass winner, third in the Kentucky Derby. We haven't seen him since. For Chad Brown, he's not a bad trainer, is what I hear. Early voting from the Chad Brown barn is coming back after winning the Preakness. Then Brad Cox has Tawny Road in there. This race is going to go a long way towards shaping the picture for the Travers. Obviously now Jack Christopher is not going in the Travers. They've already put the brakes on that. He's not going to go a mile and a quarter. So I think you're going to see this race determine who is going to be the favorite in the Travers. And, I don't know if Tawny Road is quite up to Epicenter, Zandon, or early voting. We'll find out. Wouldn't put anything past Brad Cox to win a big race like that. But, I guess, I haven't seen the past performances yet. I'm still an Epicenter fan. I thought he ran great during the Kentucky Derby and Preakness run. And, but then again, what's wrong with Zandon? What's wrong with the early voting? This will really be a good race. It'll really help clear things up. And come Sunday morning or Saturday evening, we'll have a much better idea of how things look for the Travers.
Yeah, and based on the probables, Bill, you mentioned those four, and Ethereal Road, it looks like that he's going to be the fifth one in this group. Of those horses, really early voting has the only speed in the race. So it could be as simple as, Ortiz breaks early voting out there, slows the pace way down, and just coasts in this 9 furlong race, because he literally is the only speed in the race. Epicenter, I agree with you. I thought he was going to win the Derby. and midway down the stretch, it looked like he was going to win the Derby, and he just had just because of luck and chance and everything like that, Rich Strike just came up on the rail and just barely beat him. Ethereal Road is not the same as he was, earlier on. And I don't think he's as good as some of these top 3-year-olds, but I wouldn't say that he shouldn't run in the race, but there's others that I like better. And, you mentioned Zandon, who he's going to be a fresh horse, and he's, 9 furlongs hits him right in the head. So if early voting if his stablemate Early Voting doesn't get out there on an easy lead, it could set up really, really well for Zandon. And the only thing I'll say about Tawny Port is if you look at his past performances really closely, he ran 2 of his best numbers with Lasix. So he will not be able to run on Lasix in the Jim Dandy. I'm not saying he needs to have Lasix in order to perform well, but his best performances are when he's on Lasix.
Saturday's card at Saratoga will also feature the Alfred Vanderbilt. Both of us, John, we kind of looked up online to see if we could get a feel for who's going to be in this race. Weren't lucky enough to find that out. But you have the headliner. You have a horse that's going to be an obvious favorite, and obviously odds-on favorite is Jackie's Warrior. And not that he couldn't win anywhere, but boy, does this horse love Saratoga. He's 4 for 4 at Saratoga, including what I still think was the best performance of his career when he beat Life is Good last year in the Allen Jerkin. So, I assume it'll be a short field. We might be looking at one, unfortunately, is become fairly commonplace, a 5 or 4 horse field with a huge odds-on favorite. But nonetheless, anytime Jackie's Warrior steps on the racetrack, that's a big deal.
Yeah, and Bill, I don't even think we're going to get 5 or 6. I think it's going to be Jackie's Warrior, maybe a local horse, and of course Uriah St. Louis is going to have a horse in there just to try to get 3rd place. But I don't know if put it this way, we have nice sprinters in our stable, and we wouldn't run any of them against Jackie's Warrior because you're running for 2nd place at best. So it is a really, really going to be an interesting card of Jackie's Warrior and kind of everybody else, and it almost doesn't matter if Jackie Warrior breaks on top, breaks 2nd, breaks last. He is such the class of this field as far as who the probables are, that I think I would just not even bet on the race and just watch it because he is one of those generational horses, generational sprinters that you just have to appreciate. And as a fan of racing, you just have to enjoy watching him run.
Yeah, getting a little ahead of ourselves, but if we're lucky enough to see Jackie's Warrior versus Jack Christopher in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, which I assume is where we know Jackie's Warrior is pointing there, I would assume that's where Jack Christopher would wind up. Boy, is that going to be a race. Now, Sunday at Saratoga, the Amsterdam is coming up. Not normally a race that's a big deal, but we have to mention this year because we just showed the XBTV workout of Corniche, who's, talk about a mystery horse, hasn't run since the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, where he completed his 2-year-old campaign undefeated, the 2-year-old champion of 2021 for Bob Baffert. He's been moved to the Todd Pletcher barn in part because Baffert is not allowed to run in Saratoga. But, without seeing the past performances yet and not really knowing who's in there, I got to take a stand against this horse, John, because it was interesting when we started talking to the connections, finding out why Corniche had missed all this time and was not in any of the Triple Crown preps, was not in any of the Triple Crown races. They didn't say, he had a chip removed from a knee or something like that. They basically said we weren't real happy with how he was doing, and we didn't want to bring him back until we knew he was really razor sharp. That's a little bit of a red flag for me. Obviously they must think that he's doing better now, or else he probably would still be on the shelf. But the whole explanation of his absence, having been away that long. And then the other thing, too, is I should have thought of doing the statistics, but the Breeders' Cup Juvenile has been the most anti-key race we've ever seen. I know I did some stats back around June or something, and not a single horse had yet come out of that race to win. Since then, I don't know if that's changed since then, but everything we've seen coming out of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, Papa Cap, who was 2nd, he hasn't won yet since then for trainer Mark Cassidy. On paper, it looks like that was a bad race. He'll be the favorite because he is Corniche, because he's trained by Pletcher. I don't know who else is going to be in there yet, but I'm not going to jump on his bandwagon until I see him do something on the racetrack.
And Bill, I'm sure that part of the calculus of running and managing a horse like Corniche is the fact that you want to keep his legacy going. And I know that sounds silly for a 3-year-old, but he was undefeated. He did win 2 Grade 1s as a 2-year-old. He won the Eclipse Award as a 2-year-old. and he was purchased for $1.5 million. So I think that unless the horse is 100% and really training well, they have to protect him and basically try to protect, like I said, his legacy and have him continue to be undefeated, or at least, campaign him in the easiest races possible until he can step up and has to run against the older horses. Mm-hmm. Because as a stallion prospect, the son of Quality Road is good. The female family is not as strong commercially, so he's really going to have to carry the banner for that family line. And when you're talking about these kind of dollars as a stallion prospect, tens of millions of dollars are at stake. I understand why they're taking their time with him. And also that you have to remember too, and you mentioned it, that now he's being trained by a completely different trainer, by Todd Pletcher. And, say what you want, they're both Hall of Fame trainers, but they have different styles of getting the horses ready. And I think that, the powers that be that manage Corniche are taking a very, very critical look as to when can we get this horse 100% and when can we get him running? Because once we get him running, we want him to knock out a couple of series of races before the November races against the big dogs, the older horses.